there's this article out in the Atlantic, and this is it right here. It says, "Let's declare a pandemic amnesty." And I just want to remind people. Okay, and I just want to remind people that this is the kind of shit we were dealing with. People saying, don't do your own research and don't think critically. You know what don't do your own research means? It means don't read.
You know what the rabbit hole used to be called? The library.
Yeah. And so now they don't want you to go to the library and they don't want you to critically think. That's the kind of shit that was considered publishable in the New York Times. Stop thinking critically and stop going to the library. Stop reading. This is the kind of shit we were under, that I was living under COVID. Now, I got vaccine injured in April of 2021, and I started questioning the vaccine and the COVID policy, and everything I looked into, they were lying. They were lying about masks. They were lying about herd immunity. They were lying about natural immunity. They were lying about ivermectin. They were lying about early treatments. They were lying about what weren't they lying about? They lied about it all.
But I will say, it did turn out they're safe and effective and slow the spread.
That's right. Oh, definitely. They're definitely safe and effective.
That having been said.
And I have to say that they're safe and effective, and they don't. They had a Pfizer executive just admit to the European Parliament that they never even studied whether it would stop the transmission. They did. That's what she said, right? Wasn't that what we all learned?
What, are we going to study every little part of the thing we're saying?
She said they didn't even look into it.
She didn't want to go down the rabbit hole.
They were lying about, they were wrong on mandates. They were lying about that. They were lying about the truckers. They were lying about anybody who questioned them. They were lying about doctors and scientists from Stanford and Harvard and Yale who questioned Fauci and Collins at the NIH. They smeared them, and they were. So this wasn't. So what she's going to,
Jimmy.
So I'm going to
forgive you.
So what I'm going to, so I'm just going to spoiler alert. What this article does is pretend that people in good faith just got things wrong, and now that the information has been revealed, they all understand. They all accept it. First of all, they still don't. They still are for vaccine mandates. They still hate the unvaccinated. They still don't understand the science around masks at all. They don't understand that one N95 mask protects you better than 2 surgical masks. So, meaning you don't need anybody else to wear a mask to protect you. You should wear it if you want it. If you want that protect, they don't understand. They still don't care.
You know what the counter argument is to what you're saying?
What?
Don't be that guy.
Yeah. and I'm not. And by the way, I'm not talking. These weren't. Again, these weren't people getting stuff wrong. Here's a guy who should have known way, way better. Yeah, and listen to what he says.
That's a good point. The thing of never assume malice when it might be incompetence. It's malice. Not so many more times than you think it is.
It is way more. Watch this.
When you talk about folks having the freedom to, separate if they don't want to abide by these vaccine mandates, what would that look like on a practical level? Does that mean that folks need to just stay home and have like groceries delivered to them? Does it mean like separated communities of folks who are unvaccinated, or just, how do you think this would practically play out?
Same way as with people who say that I don't want to accept traffic rules. I suppose there were people who said it's an attack on my liberty to make me stop at a red light. It's government overreach.
Now, here's why that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And he should have known better. And this is unbelievable. Because when you get the vaccine, they make you stay there for 15 minutes after you get it to make sure you don't die. That's what I was told when I got it. You know what? When you go through a traffic light, I don't have to pull over 15 minutes, see if I die. That'd be a big difference between traffic lights and a mandated experimental medical treatment that you have no long-term data on, and that now we do, and we know that you are 1,000% wrong. But you know what he wanted to do to people who questioned it and didn't go along with big pharma and the government? You want to know what he wanted to do to them? Let's listen.
I don't want the state to have that power over my private life. Well, such people they should have the decency to remove themselves from the community. If they refuse to do that, then measures have to be taken to safeguard the community from them. Then comes the practical question that you ask, how can we get food to them? Well, that's actually their problem.
I just noticed another problem with this argument. If you don't want to obey traffic lights, they don't put you in an internment camp.
and keep food from you.
They might not let you drive if you really push it.
So I just love this. Chomsky, October 2020. Trump is basically Hitler. Vote Biden to stop Orange Hitler. Chomsky, October 2021. Biden has a responsibility to remove by starvation, if necessary, these subhuman creatures from society. And he was 1,000% wrong, and I've yet to see him apologize for it. And people will give him a pass for this. Nobody will hold him responsible for saying this. And it would go a long way if he came out and talked about how egregiously wrong he was.
That's why we need COVID amnesty.
Right. But he won't. He's not asking for anybody's forgiveness for saying this horrible cretin-like bullshit.
Well,
this is monstrous what he said. And people excuse him left and right because he's old.
Well, there's the manufactured consent, Noam Chomsky, and then there's the guy that kind of sort of like Pol Pot.
Yeah, that's right. And so what makes this horrible is that in real time, I knew better than he did because I was smart enough to go to the guy who was one of the inventors of the mRNA vaccine technology. And he told me on my show in July of 2021 that we're never going to vaccinate our way out of this, that the vaccine is a leaky vaccine. And that means you're never going to stop the pandemic with this vaccine. He told me that.
So you listen to science.
So So that's me interviewing one of the top vaccine scientists in the world. And Chomsky wasn't. I guess he doesn't watch my show. I guess I don't know what he's watching or reading about vaccines or about the COVID-19 or about mandates or about traffic lights, but he's 100% wrong, 1,000%. And it was damaging. People lost their jobs. People got injured. There's lots of bad, but not least of which would be the emotional damage done by families who've been ripped apart by this, friendships who's been ended by this. And Chomsky doesn't have the character to come out strongly and say, I was wrong. You know who is doing that now? Tim Robbins, the actor, the former husband of Susan Sarandon, is coming out and saying this is bullshit, that these mandates are still in place in Hollywood, even after the New York State Supreme Court overturned the firing of the 70,000 of all those people who were fired because they wouldn't get vaccinated in New York State. They overturned it and they reinstated them. Not only that, they gave them back pay because they were 1,000% wrong. So Tim Robbins is a big person with integrity and dignity. He came out strongly, publicly on social media and said we should stop this. Where's Chomsky? Where is he? He's nowhere. And it would go a long way for me and this show if he did that. That's why I'm personally invested in this. And I was personally let down because Chomsky is one of my personal heroes, just like everybody else on the left. And to see him do stuff like that after he shit on healthcare activists, which is what he did, it was a double whammy. And nobody's making him apologize for it or even make amends. And so, I'm going to show you. I'm going to play this for you because there's a lot more people like us than you think. And this guy is a very smarty pants doctor. I think he just made him a professor. And he's on some podcast. And listen to what they have to say about this idea of amnesty.
Where people say, oh, now we know that it wasn't a good idea. So people say, oh, vaccine mandates. Oh, now we know the vaccines block transmission. It wasn't a good idea. It was like, no, it was never a good idea to ostracize people from society for being unvaccinated. That was a bad idea for all kinds of reasons, for moral reasons, for scientific reasons, for political reasons, for social reasons. It was obviously a bad idea. It's not now we know they don't block transmission. Yeah, that makes it an even worse idea. Omicron, breakthrough infections, that makes it an even worse idea. But it was a bad idea to start with. And likewise, people who say, oh, now we know that cloth masks don't work. All that kind of mania and like forcing people to wear cloth masks, that didn't really make sense. I mean, there's still people who believe that cloth masks work, right? But people say, oh, now we know. It's like, no. First of all, we knew that in 2019 that they weren't going to work. And it's not that now we know. It's that it was mandates in particular were always wrong because they weren't supported by high quality evidence. Because you shouldn't force people to do something when a recommendation would be fine, and so on. And same thing for police involvement in public health, prolonged school closures. preventing people from meeting outdoors. It's not that now we know outdoors is safe or whatever.
We always knew.
Always safe. I just had a student go through all the literature on outdoor transmission. There's only one case ever reported, and it was in China in 2020, and that's it, you know. And that one wasn't even confirmed. It's not that now we know.
And that was the one that happened at the wet market.
Being funny.
That was the first one. That's how it got loose. It was in the wet market. It was outdoor. No. Okay. You know, that's really well said. And sorry to interrupt you, but I guess I feel the same way when people say, now we know. I was like, oh, well, let me tell you. In March of 2020, that was when I wrote an op-ed saying we should hear scientists with different views and not demonize them. That's the title instead. And the point was that maybe lockdown wasn't a great idea. And at minimum, even if you thought it was, you should be willing to have a dialogue with the people who thought it didn't. And one of those people was John Ioannidis, who has a good track record and is a smart guy and is not some evil right-wing, JetBlue, whatever, crazy conspiracy theory you've told yourself. And then by early spring of 2020, I knew that outdoor risk was zero. And that's why I would do all sorts of things outdoor. And if anything, I thought we should encourage outdoor behavior to try to take some of the pressure off indoor behavior and actually give people an outlet for socializing. I knew by spring that opening schools could be done totally safe because thank God Sweden had done the experiment and half of Western Europe followed their lead, at least in elementary school, and the United States didn't. And I knew that.
So he's talking about stuff that he knew in 2020.
You know,
that's what he's talking about. Stuff that they knew already. And so this article, which I still have yet to show you, is talking about, oh, now we know. No, we freaking knew back then too.
Yeah, there's no way. I was going to say this before, but there's no way that you knew before all the experts.
That's right.
You just are saying it.
I was the one willing to say it and stick my chin out and get my teeth kicked in and be called anti-vax and right-wing and a conspiracy theorist and aiding fascism and any other stupid fucking thing you could think of was hurled at me by everybody I know.
Well, I know this sounds cynical, Jimmy, but I almost suspect that they just were already looking for a reason to ostracize a whole chunk of people, and this was a handy way to go.
Very handy. This was exactly it. There's a video out there that got 800,000 views talking about how I'm a vaccine grifter, even though I'm the only one with the balls to tell the truth about the COVID policy. And I got it right. And I'm being proven right every fucking day, just like I was right about Russiagate, Syriagate. Now I'm right about this. COVID lockdowns, right about masks. I'm right about the whole goddamn thing because it doesn't take a genius to get this shit right. It takes someone with balls to fucking actually say it out loud.
Well, Jimmy, you can't spell coward without cow.
So let's get back to this.
It's a mistake. And I knew when the AAP said we should reopen schools, that was the right idea. And I knew when Trump echoed it, it was the right idea. But what I didn't know was that they would change their tune just because Trump said it. That to me blew me away.
And so we were following the science and we were saying that the teachers' unions were wrong. We're very big union supporters. Steph was a union leader in the teachers' union her whole career. And people tried to make it out like we were attacking teachers. No, we were actually following the science and saying that the schools should be reopened, and we were right. And of course, we're being proven correct. This article proves us correct in the Atlantic. Now the Atlantic agrees with us. So anyway, here we go.
Cloth mask didn't work. I could read all the randomized trials to date, and I knew we should be doing more randomized trials, and Trish Greenhall and others didn't think we should. That was a mistake. I knew we should reopen certainly by the fall, if not have already reopened by then. We had German data that showed that was safe. I knew we shouldn't have changed the number of cases we look at as the primary statistical analysis plan of the Pfizer trial merely to delay the product. I knew we shouldn't have done that. That was a mistake. I didn't sign that letter. I knew that when the vaccine came out that the way we prioritized the rollout was misguided, putting a 20-year-old resident ahead of an 88-year-old.
So when he's talking about when they rolled out the vaccine, they prioritized giving it to medical workers. He goes, you're going to give it to a 20-year-old resident before you give it to an 80-year-old woman? That doesn't make any sense. And that's exactly right. They were wrong about that too. They should have had targeted. They should have targeted the whole COVID policy should have been targeted, and that was called the Barrington Declaration. But guess what? Those scientists, they weren't just said they were wrong. They just weren't disagreed with. They weren't even just dismissed. There were articles written to smear them and slander them in The Intercept, in news, in everywhere you could look. They did to try to smear and slander those people as some kind of right-wing grifters. They're from Stanford and Harvard and Yale. They're the tops in their fields. The most excited in their fields, and they smeared those people. They weren't getting it. These weren't good faith efforts to try to get it right, and they just got it wrong. No, this was a criminal conspiracy to silence anybody who went against Big Pharma's narrative, and it succeeded.
You know what's amazing? What's the guy's name? The doctor?
Dr. Vinny Prasad.
Him saying like, what I didn't think they would do is just because Trump said it, they would do the opposite. You did. That's the thing. It's really shocking when somebody's like, especially a guy's a doctor who's smart. You didn't think that's how it worked,
right? Of course. There's a little bit more of this.
In the community that was misguided. And then I knew the mandates were not going to do anything of good. Either that it didn't provide an additional benefit to that third party, and that there's a downside to imposing something on the population. And that downside has so many spillover effects in so many domains that we have yet to live with. And then I've known that pretty much since the vaccine, I think most of our policy was really misguided, like paying for Paxlovid, not doing randomized studies, living in fear. I mean, so when they say like, now we know better, I'm like, yeah, I've known all along.
Exactly. And so here, let me just breeze through this article for you. If you're still interested, here it comes. Some of these choices, she talked, we just made choices and we were wrong. Some of the choices turn out to be better than others. Take example close to my own work. There is an emerging, if not universal, consensus that schools in the U.S. were closed for too long. You are wrong about that. There are millions of people. You go on Twitter and say they should, and see what happens to you. You're going to be called a eugenicist if you say that they should open schools again.
She knows it's true and is trying to make it like there's an emerging thing that people are saying it. That's what that is.
She's trying to convince you, no, everybody's now coming round to this. Anyway, the health risks of in-school spread were relatively low. Right? And you know when we knew that? We knew that in 2020 because of Sweden. I knew that because of Sweden. The health risk of in-school spread were relatively low, whereas the costs of students' well-being and educational progress were high. Yes. The latest figures on learning loss are alarming. Yeah, what about, and people who were ringing the warning bell were smeared. They just weren't disagreed with. But in the spring and summer of 2020, we had only glimmers of information. Okay, reasonable people who cared about children and teachers, advocated on both sides of the real. There's nothing wrong with advocating. We're talking about people who slandered, smeared, discredited, and lied about people who they disagreed with. That's what this is about. And you know what you need first? You need an act of contrition. So as soon as Chomsky and all those other people who called me anti-vax, called me whatever those names are, I'm enabling fascism, whatever bullshit they could think of, when they apologize to me, I'll be glad to say your apology, you're forgiven, apology accepted, no problem, no hard feelings even though you said all that horrible shit about me on social media. No hard feelings if you apologize.
If Chomsky apologizes and gives you 3 wishes, will you?
Obviously, some people intend... So this is what she's writing in The Atlantic. Obviously, some people intended to mislead and made wildly irresponsible claims. Who are those people? She never says. You know who those people were? Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
And everybody in and everybody in corporate media who said ivermectin was horse paste. Those were people who were misleading people on purpose. You know who that was? Everybody in corporate media. And now you just want to let them go without apologizing or admitting they were lying. At least Joe Rogan got Dr. Sanjay Gupta to admit that everybody at CNN, including him, was lying about ivermectin. They weren't just kidding. They were lying to mislead you. That's who did it. Fauci, the FDA, the goddamn everybody in the corporate media. This wasn't some fucking random thing of people getting it wrong accidentally. Remember when and then the only thing she points to is when remember when the public health community, oh shit. Remember when the public health community had to spend a lot of time and resources urging Americans not to inject themselves with bleach? That's the only thing she mentions. She doesn't mention the ivermectin thing where they showed people in winter coats standing outside Oklahoma emergency rooms in August. She didn't talk about that. She doesn't talk about all the lies they told about immunity, natural immunity, herd immunity, masks. They don't talk about any of that stuff, about transmission, contraction. She doesn't talk about anything. This is what she points to.
Mm-hmm.
That was bad. She says that was bad.
Yeah.
Misinformation was and remains a huge problem. But she doesn't talk about the misinformation coming from the establishment. Isn't that amazing?
Well, no, she says it right here.
But most errors were made by people who were working in earnest they were not. They were lying at the top of their lungs. Fauci admitted he was lying about herd immunity. He admitted he was lying about masks. He admitted it, even though they've rewritten the history if you try to look it up on Google.
In earnest.
For the good of, and I'm going to be honest, I don't believe anybody injected themselves with bleach to fight COVID. I think that's media bullshit. But let's say I'm wrong. And if anybody really did do that, how long were those people going to live anyway?
Oh, bleach works?
But it's not like those people were just about to cure cancer and they fell for the bleach hoax. And so they, at the Atlantic, they were doing earnest misinformation,
Yeah.
Kurt. That's what was happening there. The good kind.
Yeah, like
Not the bad kind like Alex Jones. He wasn't earnest when he... And now he's being sued for $2 trillion. Because he wasn't earnest. So if you take earnesty away from misinformation, $2 trillion. But earnesty is your shield from prosecution. I was earnest. You don't think Alex Jones was earnest when in his drunken maniac, coke-infused rant about the... I think he was earnest.
To the point of borderline insanity.
To the point of borderline insanity, I would say he was earnest. Jesus. Given the amount of uncertainty, almost every position was taken on every topic. And on every topic, someone was eventually proved right and someone else was proved wrong. No, that's still not true. There are still vaccine mandates for kids going to college. There's still vaccine mandates on every set in Hollywood. My friend, I have friends who can't go on auditions because they are standing up against the mandate. This isn't true. She's making it up. They've been proved wrong, but they're not admitting they've been proved wrong. Nobody's apologized to me. Has anybody apologized to you? Anybody? Has Fauci come out and say, "Oh, we got everything wrong"?
I have to just take mild comfort in famous people's facial paralysis. That's the only thing I get out of it.
And she listen to this. She goes, in some instances, the right people. The right people were right for the wrong reasons, but she never says what those are.
Wait, what? Well,
She never says what. So the right people were right for the wrong reasons. What in the name of Jesus, Fauci, Christ does that even mean?
What is that? What does that mean? The right people were right for the wrong reason. Who cares what reasons they were right for?
For what?
And also the right people.
Look, the right people. I don't know. The people who got it right for whatever reason may want to gloat. For whatever reason. Maybe because you... Or how about they just want their fucking jobs back?
Yeah, they may want.
Maybe they want a legal settlement. Maybe they want that too. Not only gloat. What the F?
They say legal settlements are the best gloating.
Those who got it wrong for whatever reason
This one.
may feel defensive and retrench into a position that doesn't accord with the facts. First of all, what's this may shit, okay? You mean they will start doing that, and they already have been doing that all along. Or they may write the most long-winded bullshit article in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Anyway. Hey, why not say those were... Why not say that those who were wrong all along are going to continue to spread misinformation because that's what the fuck they're doing, and they're still doing it. Go on Twitter.
I'm gonna burn this into my this thing.
Yes.
Some people, for whatever reason,
are going to keep lying.
They may no, but I won't just say that. I want to. I
Right.
say it the Atlantic way.
Yeah.
They may feel defensive and retrench into a position
Retrench.
that doesn't accord with the facts of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And
Otherwise, lying about the
what
science.
An insufferable.
Yes.
Just to even write that sentence is like you're trying to spread misinformation.
I know.
All right.
I know, Kurt. I'm with you. all of this gloating and defensiveness continues to gobble up a lot of the social energy and drive the culture wars. You know what is gobbling it up? Fucking big pharma funded propaganda that nobody's debunking.
Hey, we need that social energy for Ukraine.
That's right.
Stop these energy guzzling topics.
These discussions are heated, unpleasant, and ultimately unproductive. In the face of so much uncertainty, getting something right had a hefty element of luck. No, it fucking didn't.
Does that mean some of us are billionaires now? Like extra billionaires?
You got to get luck. Like it was like flipping a coin. Are mandates good or bad? I don't know. I'm going to get lucky. I didn't get lucky.
The balls roll funny for everybody, kids.
I didn't get lucky. I looked into it. You know, that's called doing your own research.
You
I know.
Prescient?
I was prescient.
I thought prescient's like ESP. Did you just read the thing?
No, I just read. All I had to do was read, and I interviewed
That's not a psychic power.
a guy who was a leading vaccine researcher. That's all I had to do, and I knew what was going on. And similarly, getting something wrong wasn't a moral failing, but they turned it into one.
It was a joke thing.
They turned it into, it was a moral failing, you absolute craven bourgeois twit. The moral failing of being a status-obsessed careerist. You know the main moral failing of pyramids? You know the main moral failing our pyramid scheme of a nation is built on? It was a moral failing. What Chomsky did was a moral failing. What Chomsky did was a moral failing. Wanting to enforce an experimental medical treatment with no long-term studies on other people, or else they would lose their livelihood or their ability to travel or visit. That was a moral failing, and it should never be forgotten. It should be forgiven, but it should never be forgotten. And in order for it to be forgiven, the people who did that moral failing need to admit it and make a sincere act of contrition. That's what your article should be saying, that those motherfuckers who got this wrong should be making a sincere act of contrition. Not that we should look the other way while they continue to retrench into lying.
Also, you already can't be sued for it, so is that so much to ask?
Right?
It's not like you're liable.
We have to put these fights aside and declare a pandemic amnesty.
That's a joke.
Do you think it will be safe? Do you think the pandemic amnesty will be a safe and effective treatment? Because personally, I worry about the possible cases of breakthrough. Go fuck yourself. We can leave out the willful purveyors of actual misinformation. Again, she won't say who it is. I'll say who it was. It was Fauci, who was a intentional misinformer. The corporate media. Everybody who lied about ivermectin, those are the people who are on purpose.
Every prick in her social circle.
That's right. How about everybody in your social circle and everybody who works at the Atlantic? How about that? By the way, the Atlantic are the people who smeared Dr. Robert Malone.
Of course.
So you smear a guy who's at the top of his field, you try to discredit him. And then now the same goddamn publication is saying, hey, you know what? No blood, no foul, no harm, no foul. There was lots of harm. And you have to make a contrition for that. You have to make amends for that. And so that's where we got to go.
Isn't this the magazine of my fiance is wearing a dress to fight masculinity, and I'm not sure if I'm attracted to it.
I don't know if this is that.
That's the kind of problems they deal with.
So at the end, she even says that she was a victim of this. She says, because I thought schools should reopen and argued that kids as a group were not at high risk, I was called a teacher killer and a genocider.
That's not how you spell the C word.
I know. It wasn't pleasant, but feelings were high, and I certainly don't need to dissect and rehash that time for the rest of my days. No, but those people need to make an act of contrition. That's what needs to happen.
It's a thing, too.
She was. I agreed that she was the victim. I agree that happened to her, and it was shitty that happened to her. And I'm sorry that happened to you. But this isn't the way to fix all this. You're wrong. She's 100% wrong about this. And you misframed the argument all the way through.
And you created that world with your dumb nonsense. By all the people this comes back on,
Right.
they're all part of it until
Yes.
it happens to them.
So finally she got the gumption to say we should reopen schools, and they shit on her. Finally.
Oh, is that weird? It seems like those were the crazy conspiracy nuts.
So anyway, that's the end of that. And so everybody knows how I feel. I just want to make sure I add that the vaccines, while they don't stop completely the transmission of the virus or they do slow the transmission and contraction.
You get it more slowly.
They do slow the. I have to tell that's the science from YouTube, and
I'm
I have
fully
to.
vaccinated, and when I got COVID anyway, it slowly came on.
It's
So
slow.
I can attest to all the viewers that it does work as.
Yeah, it does work. So just because we all got vaccinated and we all got COVID doesn't mean.
And then I got an extra injection of context.
Yes. So I'm doing this because these are the rules and I have to follow the rules. Okay. And by the way, the vaccine completely safe and effective.
Even the one they pulled off.
Even the one they
market.
pulled. Okay. Even the one they're not using anymore. I love it. I love it. By the way, you know where all the polio? There was a polio outbreak in New York. You know where everybody's getting the polio from?
Where?
Don't look it up
Oh.
because it'll blow your mind. Okay, it's not coming from nature. Okay.
Wasn't people farting into the water supply?
Bunch
as
of
I put
people.
forth at
That's
the time?
right. That is
Okay.
exactly what's happening. See, in Denver, Palm Springs, Austin, Texas, and Burbank, California after Thanksgiving. Plus, we're going to be doing a lot of shows in December in Studio City. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets.